Hey everybody, it looks like we are live. This is Matt Finch. I'm the creative director for Frog God Games, and with me I have Satine Phoenix and Jamison to talk about a Kickstarter that they are going to be releasing and probably will be released probably a day or so ago at the time that you guys actually get to see this. So what you'll be able to do is go down to the link and probably get directly to the Kickstarter for convenience if you like what it is that you hear about it. Satine, Jamison, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
So the name of the Kickstarter you guys are coming out with is Sirens, Battle of the Bards. And taking a real quick look at it, it's got various, options for bards. It's got a setting. There's a lot of stuff going on with it. And one of the immediate things that struck me as a similarity was to an old product from probably about 1980 called Thieves Guild, in which they did something roughly similar with Thieves, where they expanded on Thieves' skills and then gave you an entire setting and series of adventures that were designed to allow you to play that sort of role with a lot more specificity and a lot more depth. Is that what you guys are doing with Bards?
Exactly. Yeah. So we really want to take the Bard class and really open it up and create, as you mentioned, a setting where people could explore what would a bardic city look like? What would an entire city ruled and populated by bards? Obviously, there are other classes, other races, other peoples there, but what would that location be like? And either you could roll a new bard, or you could bring a pre-existing character into that setting and enjoy our full campaign.
One of the things that you that's talked about in the sort of the teaser text of it is revolution. What is that about?
So the city is built on 10 different districts. These are tiers. So it's a vertical city. And the center of it, the whole thing's built on an oasis with this giant geyser of magical holy water that comes up through the center and is trickled down through the city. Unfortunately, that means the people up top get the most magical water, and them being nobles have kind of siphoned the magic and taken most of it before it gets down to the lower levels. We have a set of villains, and they're the Emerald Cabal. They come from my live stream show that I've been doing for the last 4 years, and they've basically infiltrated this city and are using this magical resource to amplify their elixir that they've been selling. They have this beauty pyramid scheme that they've been using to infiltrate governments all over the world. So, you've got this beautiful city made of art and culture, and now they have a corrupt government, and the people down below are really upset. So now you've got a bunch of bards and their allies trying to take back a city, whereas the nobles up top really don't want that. So you have this whole rebellion faction that's really upset, and you as the adventurers are a part of that, or can be a part of that rebellion, depending on what path you choose.
Yeah, we really want to lean into player agency, and so by giving multiple endings and actually an entire faction and fame set kind of dynamic within the actual campaign itself, to allow players and play groups to be able to lean towards whatever faction they wanted. So they could hypothetically want to side with the Emerald Cabal and maybe run a little bit more of a nefarious, fiend-like adventure if they wanted to potentially, usher in a kind of reverse revolution, or a double agent within a revolution, or if they want to lean into exploring some of the other opportunities available. But we really believe that by not putting people on rails and allowing the GM and the players to co-create a story, that ultimately people have more fun with their TTRPG campaigns.
So you've basically got even though you've got the setting, balanced at the edge of a knife, it's still pretty much a sandbox in terms of what it is that people are going to do in terms of the events moving forward.
Well, the entire thing takes place over a 10-day, and you have answered Vlanya's call to adventure. You're part of her spy network to come into the city, and she wants you to help save the city. And through investigating and going through the different discs and meeting with different people, you can make multiple choices. But essentially, it's kind of like the soccer analogy we talked about. the entire thing is a contest.
Of the World Cup bracket system. Yeah, so absolutely. So every 100 years they have this grand invocation where the city invokes a deity, and it recharges their wellspring, and it gives them this magical component called Quesaba. And so the kind of the hierarchy of our city uses Quesaba to fuel the city and do various magical properties. The city believes that on this kind of the centennial, the capping stone of the last time that they can do this invocation, that they will be once again invoking a deity. The Emerald Cabal, however, has a little bit more fiendish plans for this. And there are certain NPC characters who actually also want to bring down this fiend instead of bringing down a deity. And so the player characters are able to try and steer the course of events in more of an open sandbox setting, as you had mentioned, to be able to actually dictate how things happen. In addition, we have a limited amount of time, as Satine mentioned. And so if you choose, option A out of A, B, and C, then there will be a different reaction of not choosing B and C. And the events of all of the other factions will progress accordingly if you either have or have not done that. And we then have it mapped out on a flowchart of then what occurs.
I was about to ask you that, because as an author, my first question is, how did you organize that? So talk more about how you got it, in terms of, because I'm going to be, probably I'm a DM. I open the book for the first time. What is the organizational scheme that leads me into this? Because it sounds like it's going to be relatively complex, so there's going to be a fair amount of prep time to it, and I can put my players to work because they've got all sorts of cool new toys to play with their bards, so they'll at least they'll be working on that. But it sounds like I've got a fair amount of prep time. How do I learn how to run this 10-day sequence that is the core of it? Because I assume that you can keep adventuring in it afterwards, but it sounds like
in perpetuity. Absolutely,
a time-limited adventure with certain things that are going to happen. So how is the DM? What is it that I'm seeing?
Do you want me to jump in?
Yeah, no, so we have it set up so if you know what the world is doing, so what is as a dungeon master, you got 10 days. So what is the world doing in those 10 days? We give you a timeline actually in front of every chapter to show you this is what your quest is for this chapter, but also this is what everyone else is doing in this chapter. So should your characters want to go left or right, they can interact with the world. So we created the story in a very compact and efficient way so that the game master understands the breadth of what is going on, and also a timeline of what's going on, and different NPCs placed in different places so that they can kind of keep weaving. We are designing the actual book for game masters. He's a fantasy writer, and so it's written very beautifully and efficiently so that you can quick reference throughout the book. Anything you need is available that fast. So, you open it up and it has history of Salvata. It tells you what's going on, the rebellion, the herald, and then it goes into there's like a chapter on how to run this book, and that right there is going to give you a quick reference on how to handle every single chapter that comes after that.
And to answer your question too, it is really complicated, and we tried to simplify it for game masters. And we have a fame and renown system where the actual party itself has a kind of a fame metric, and so leaning into being bards and kind of being in the city of artists, the actual city and its population will react to you based on your fame, both positive or negative, if you are infamous or famous. Additionally, you'll have renown with 4 primary factions, and these factions will interact with you differently and then each other differently depending on who you are polling with. And you can have your renown with them isn't necessarily known to everyone, but it's known to you directly and that other person. And so you can actually then play other groups against each other and have it be more of a politicking kind of intrigue setting as well. Instead of just, again, we really don't want to feel like things are on rails, but really give you the ability to have player agency to make choices within the setting.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, but we're really into efficiency. So like I'm a screenwriter, and so it's really important to me to be efficient and be able to turn a page and know what to look at. So the how to run this part of the book will tell you, okay, this is like before an encounter, here are your quick stats.
Yeah.
Before every chapter, here are 3 different ways you can run the different encounters, and here's quick reference guides to everything.
Yeah. So you can
So
go
that
right on the fly. So if you
it's-
just open up to chapter 3, you know exactly what you can encounter in that chapter right
So
immediately.
it's a lot, but we help you play the game.
And I think that's really important, because a lot of times when people design something that's complex, you know, I think everybody wants to have something that is potentially complex, but that their ability to get into it is in the step-by-step process, where you're talking about, if, you know, first turn here, but when you need to look here, go here, but when you need to look here, go here. Just like I said about how we were not going to try not to edit, something was going to happen, and it was going to be my cell phone ringing. So
Well, you know, it's really interesting. So I'm also a graphic designer and a comic book artist. So, you know, the layout of a page is very important. You know, I've read tons of books, of TTRPG books, and it gets very frustrating for me if it's not like visually ergonomically correct. And you are telling a story as a layout artist. You are telling the game master what to look at. Even when in the player chapters, right? We have 10 different Bard subclasses, which I'm sure we'll go into in a little bit. Being able to quick reference is so important. And we've taken it upon ourselves to really like fine tune the aesthetic of the book to allow so much information to come at you in a very pleasing and actually enjoyable way.
that's awesome, and that it's always good. And there's been a lot of focus on the way that books are organized recently, which I think is a good thing. But since you mentioned the Bard subclasses, that's probably going to be one of the big areas of interest for a lot of people who are going into it, because it's a game resource. What are the Bard subclasses? What do they do?
So, okay, I first want to say I'm very familiar with the history of D&D and the history of bards. And up until I started doing my live stream, I got a lot of flack for playing bards. So I'm an artist. I went to art school for 5 years. He's an artist. He's a writer, you know, and also he works with a lot of artists. What is art? Art is communication. Art is being able to evoke through creativity, evoke emotions, either, you know, attracting or repelling. So, you know, you got your bards, the old school bards, they're in taverns singing and they're very sexual. We don't actually play, I don't play with sexuality in any of my games. So what would a bard look like in this world? Well, you got your introverted bards and your extroverted bards. And maybe, you know, your bard is a craftsman. So they're not going to use charisma. They're going to use dexterity, or they're going to use intelligence. So I'll say what they are, and then you can say what the bards are. My 2 favorite subclasses that we've developed so far are the College of Geometry, which is an intelligence-based bard, and the College of Anatomy. This is like what I would study in art school. So I'm like, I know that 5 years of art school make you a master at any one of these. So if you go to our Salvata University for bards, you can actually take one of these subclasses. So you want to say what the bard classes are?
One of my favorites is actually the tattoo bard. So I really enjoy tattoos. I'm covered in tattoos, and this idea of being able to use your art form to in fact change either in yourself or in an ally. It can either be a permanent increase, you know, maybe you give a stat increase, maybe you give a special ability or a cantrip, and have that be both artistically based and then also combat based as well. I think this is also a fantastic thing within a bard city to have for an NPC. So if a character wants to go on an adventure to actually go and get a specific benefit, they would go to Salvata, this location where all these artists would flock, and then go and find a tattoo bard who would be able to actually infuse them with a magical property that could very well be a permanent stat increase,
or temporary
as well, depending on how the GM wants to balance it in their game.
Yeah, and so for College of Geometry, like I love math, I really do. So, you know, you've got your architect bard, or even your jewelry designer bard, who's going, those are 2 drastically different kinds of artists, but one of them might be really good at setting traps or doing things behind the scenes, almost like an artificer, but more artistic. Or maybe they sing to rock to pull the magic out of the rock and form structures to help their allies. You've got the anatomy, a college of anatomy might be, we have a new siren on my show. Her name's Alicia Marie, and she's playing an aerialist. And what does that mean? Well, she doesn't need verbal components to use her spells because she's a master at dancing and being athletic and acrobatic. So she'll get bonuses there. And also, you know, like there are a lot of people who can't speak. So it's not fair to have a class where you have to use verbal components. It just doesn't seem fair to me. So now you've got a dex-based bard.
So you've got a lot of focus here. What you're kind of doing is taking the bard from square one and seeing that, you know, bards are about communication, art is about communication, and then you are breaking it out from there sort of along art forms.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you have your chef bard, your barbarian, you've got your bartender, you know, so we like the playfulness of it. And also I'm from San Francisco and from LA, and there's a lot of very quiet artists who do magnificent pieces of artwork, from tiny, minuscule, little small pieces to massive murals on walls, from clothing design, hair design to, you know, crafting clothes. It's art is everywhere. So here's a city. And also you got to think about it, a city of bards, and it's maybe it's a very high charisma city. How do you use, how can you affect other people who have high charisma? Well, you got to really think around that stat.
So let's, so I think we've got the basic idea. You know, the folks watching are probably trying to get an idea of what the Kickstarter is you guys are offering. I think that's a pretty good cross-sectional view of what it is, but what else is it that people who are thinking about signing on and backing the Kickstarter, what else do you want them to know?
Absolutely. We've also really wanted to lean into, you know, in this kind of, you know, digital age during quarantine, we've partnered with a lot of really exciting VTTs. So if people either are, you know, they've been using VTTs for a long time, or if they're interested in learning more, we've partnered with Roll20, Fantasy Grounds,
Foundry
VTT, and Shard tabletop as well, to be able to bring our campaign and setting into the virtual tabletop. Not only do we have a free sample of our introduction and first chapter, which includes 3 acts, so people can actually play the game for free right now at thebardbook.com. But several of our VTTs are also having VTT samples as well. So if people have not even tried a VT, they can try that out for free, whether or not they, you know what that's about or not. We also have Sirenscape. So for people who really like to have you know, music and sound effects in their game, we have a free sample of our Sirenscape battle pack, and we will have an entire battle packs for each of our 10 discs in different sectors of the city as well.
Yeah, we have a full orchestral soundtrack that we're really proud of. We're working with some amazing artists for that. And also, you know, you don't have to be a bard to play in this book. We've actually designed the mechanics of what if nobody's a bard? How do you make a band? You know, so being able to be a barbarian and play the drums, you're actually using your attack rolls. I'm really proud of the mechanics that we built into this so that every single person can play and feel confident that they have something to contribute here.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Anything else you want to add? Last chance. What else is important? What's cool?
Man, for me, I think I really enjoy combat encounters and really interestingly set up ways to involve battle and you know, settings and how the actual set pieces affect the combat encounters. And
okay, good.
Really...
So there is fighting. That's good.
Oh, there's so much fighting. Like, trust me, there's a lot of fight. I'm a mean game master,
yeah,
so.
Yeah. So, and I don't want people to think that it's just, you know, just about singing or about bands. And so, in our free chapter, you'll be able to see how we've actually rethought of a lot of ways of having really unique epic encounters as well, where you'll find that the way that we've really tried to kind of spin both this bard class and this bard city to involve, I think, some really innovative battle tactics and some of the unique qualities of Salvata itself really come into place. I'm really excited for people to, I kind of have some head scratching moments of how am I going to solve this problem? How am I going to, you know, defeat this enemy?
These consequences hurt a lot, and now I have to wear that. Like, I want, you know, if you're gonna play really fun, you got to to play with a lot of darkness too, because that darkness is going to make the bright light shine so bright. So that's awesome stuff for inside the book. Outside of the book, we're collectors, as you can see here. This is one of our many collection areas, but we were partnered with Wormwood. They're doing a master vault and a dice tray, a personal dice tray that fit inside of one another. And it has an emblem that I'm very proud to have designed for the city of Salvata on top of that. It's in cherry wood and in purple heart. So the cherry wood is wood burned and the purple heart is this brass inlay. It's so classy. And on the inside, they came up with this way to print a full painting on the inside of the leather, the faux leather tray. So you can literally roll into the city. And so what do you put in your dice vault? Well, we have minis. We partnered with Mixed Dimensions for minis. They're 3D printed in full color and translucent and with details. Like I don't understand how they made the details on this. Also, I'm a huge fan of minis. We've got tons up here. I think between the two of us, we have about 4,000 minis.
I think maybe more.
Yeah. I mean, last time I counted, I had 3,500, and we've had multiple shipments since then. Massive collectors here. So we also work with campaign coins for they're coins that we designed so that there's a well inside, and that represents the wellspring of Salvata, but also you can put your inspiration dice in there and you can slide it over to your neighbor if you want to give them bardic inspiration or whatever it is. And then we have our dice. Now, I also have a massive collection of dice because, well, this is what you do when you're addicted to these games. So we have your polyhedrals, which are amazing, but we also have a brand new special, never before made 3D set that are we call them transmutation. They're like little tiny shapes, bard shapes. So your D4 is now a lute, and your D6 is books askew. You've got an ink pen and an ink well for your percentile, so you can easily visually reference them. You're like, I need to roll.
These are the shapes.
These are the
Dice.
shapes.
Yeah, designed with Level Up
we've
dice.
never seen them before.
So we worked with Level Up to custom design these shapes.
Yeah.
It was really, I loved actually seeing Satine's such an amazing artist, see her crafting and give feedback on how to actually shape these dice, and then have Level Up say, okay, here's how we can do that and still have it roll correctly.
Yeah, I'm like, this is the dream. And they're like, all right, challenge accepted.
And they did it. It was amazing. Yeah.
Our favorite is the microphone D20. And I know it's not fantasy because it's a microphone, but how cool is it to do a mic drop for your D20
mic drop?
Of course. Right. So are these different? Are these tiers? It sounds like you're going to have a lot of different tiers available.
Yep. Yeah. And those are add-ons too. So Kickstarter just rolled out a new function, making it really easy for people to add add-ons like dice in our Wormwood boxes and our campaign coins. And so we will have tiers, and there will be a tier with kind of all of our epic loot and add-ons. Or if you just want the book and only the dice, or if you just want the book and the Wormwood Vault, you can get the tier of the book and then just click on the next page. We'll have a little add-on button where you just click whatever things that you'd like to have. And our page is set up so you can easily scroll through and see all the different add-ons and all of our professional partners.
Yes, I've also heard, and I haven't tried it out, but I've also heard that Kickstarter has improved the add-on thing. So if you're watching, try out the add-on thing and see how it works, because apparently it's fairly new and it's supposed to be
so much easier. Yeah. It was a relief. I've been using Kickstarter for a long time, both as a backer and as a content creator too, and I was so thrilled when they did this. It's made everyone's life a lot easier.
I've been practicing with other people's Kickstarters. Like, oh, look at this cool function.
So everybody who's watching who's not in the industry, this is what industry people geek out about. Is you hear Kickstarter got a new
totally yeah exactly.
So there's that. All right, well, Jamison, Satine, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's great to see you guys, and hopefully the Kickstarter will be already underway and doing well by the time people see it.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Check us out at thebardbook.com. Thank you so much.
Say again the link. We'll have it. We'll have the link to the Kickstarter where you can probably get everything, but you just mentioned another link. So what's that?
Thebardbook.com.
Bardbook.com.
Thebardbook.com. We want to make it very easy for you.
Super
it's Sirens Battle of the Bards, and you can get it at thebardbook.com.
Sounds great. Thank you guys for being on the show.
Thank you.